Oh, goody.
Alright, what's going on, everybody? Zombies here again, and today we're back with another Marvel Snap video. So today we have some balance changes to talk about. Most notably, a change to Galactus, which has been kind of coming for a while. They said like a month ago or so, he had exceeded their metrics for where they felt he needed some adjustment, and we're finally seeing what that adjustment is. And I think this was going to be a pretty controversial one. I'm probably going to talk about this mostly, but we will mention the other cards that got buffed at the end, though I don't expect them to be quite as relevant to the metagame as the change being made here. So, what did they do to Galactus? Galactus is now a 6 cost, 7 power. On reveal, if you're winning this location, and this is your only card here, destroy all other locations. This is a very, very big nerf. So I'm sure some people are going to be wondering how exactly this works. Galactus does count his own power, so he will count his 7 power, which is his new power, and you need to win the lane with it and have him be alone for his effect to go off now. Also worth noting that if Galactus does end up going off, it is a lot harder to throw priority. So the Galactus deck is going to be not only harder to, actually get its Galactus to go off, but it's also going to be harder to win the game with it, because you're not going to have the opponent have priority, so they can't Shang-Chi you, or they can't Enchantress or Rogue your Null. So yeah, this is a pretty huge change. Let's take a look at what they had to say about it in the patch notes. So they do start off mentioning high Evo, keeping an eye on high Evo. All the changes today were locked in just after the high Evo release. They're keeping an eye on it, and if it is out of line in any way, they'll be using OTAs or the next major patch to make adjustments. So I guess we'll be keeping an eye on that. But yeah, Galactus. Galactus is a card we've kept a close eye on since release. His ability warps the game, changing the goal for both players from claiming 2 locations to waging war around cards that counter him and his finishers and priority. We don't mind mixing things up from time to time in that regard, but Galactus's play rate was moving past thresholds we set to determine both competitive diversity and also how frequently the game gets reduced to that state. Because Galactus is inherently counterable, we waited to see if the metagame could sort itself out, but it hasn't. Galactus' popularity has increased, his win rate has only grown, and many players don't even enjoy beating him. These are problems worth solving. The original design for Galactus is difficult to rebalance, because it is essentially one valve we can adjust, power. However, lower power can mean that Galactus always loses priority, making post-Galactus counters like Shang-Chi or Enchantress difficult to play. Meanwhile, increasing the power may let you beat these cards more naturally, especially Professor X. Either way, it's all about the counters. We considered making him the first 7 cost card, but that was just less fun and weaker with the same issues. We also considered full redesigns for Galactus, but didn't find anything that cleared our bar, which is very high. Ultimately, we decided to make power a functional way for us to tune Galactus, which led us to this additional winning restriction. Caring about winning this way lets players contest Galactus within the core fun of Snap, using power to challenge for locations. Relying exclusively on counters is frustrating because neither player has much control over their appearance, but every deck should have the ability to muster 7 power. We expect he'll be stronger in decks that play him on turn 6 after Hobgoblin or Nimrod, but worse in the stronger, more popular Galactus archetypes. This change proves to be too much or too little. It also gives us the ability to tune him further via OTA to find the healthiest spot. Well, this card is dead. It's gonna be really bad. They mentioned Goblin and Nimrod, and yes, those might get a bit of a boost because the original version's gonna become a lot worse. It doesn't mean they're gonna be good. I think they're gonna be pretty trash, and I think a lot of people aren't gonna be very happy about it. As I've said before, I've always been kind of neutral on the Galactus debate. I don't love it, I don't hate it. It's honestly been more of a headache than anything, just everyone arguing about it all the time, and unfortunately, I don't think this change is really going to stop that very much. I actually do worry that this is going to turn a whole lot of people off of the game, and I think we're actually going to see more requests today for some form of compensation than people have ever asked for before in the history of the game. Because Galactus was not exactly a cheap deck, even if we ignore the big bad himself. The fact that they kind of greedily have been withholding Null in Series 4 past when he was initially supposed to rotate, and I wouldn't surprise me now if he rotates next month, because I don't know if you're going to be playing Null and Galactus anymore with the change made to this card. I'm going to be trying it out just out of kind of curiosity. But I don't think it's going to be good. I think it's going to actively be very bad, and I don't think adjusting the power at all really will change that very much, if that's something they even do in the future. But yeah, I think the big thing here is they saw a lot of success with OTAs, so they feel like they need to balance things more regularly, but more isn't always good, and I think while this will make for some less polarizing matchups, because I do think Galactus's popularity was too high, and they probably should find a way to bring it down. I don't know if this was the best course to go about it. That being said, I don't have an answer to what I would have done for Galactus. Most of the time when a card is really busted, or even just annoying, I have some ideas about how I would change it myself, but like they mentioned in the post, it's kind of a hard card to adjust. So I don't really envy their position on changing this card, but I don't think this is going to go over very well with the larger community, particularly the large section of it that actually enjoys playing the Galactus decks. But we'll see how it shakes out. If you've got some thoughts on this, I'd definitely love to hear them. But I think that they're almost essentially leadering this card right now. They're giving it the old leader treatment. I would be very, very surprised if after this change, Galactus is even like remotely close to a 50% win rate. It's gonna tank. It's gonna be bad, and some people will be happy about that, and others will not. But that's pretty much all I have to say about Galactus. Let's take a look at the other cards. Next up, we have Dazzler. This is a card they've talked about reworking before, and looks like we're finally getting it. Dazzler went from a 4/4 ongoing, gaining +6 attack if all your locations are full. And now Dazzler is cheaper. She is a 3-cost 2 power instead, with the ongoing +2 power for each location that's full on your side. So this is definitely a better card. Truthfully, I kind of wish they made it a 3/3. I think 3/2 is a little lower than it really needs to be, because filling locations isn't exactly the easiest thing to do a lot of the time. But the main thing that sticks out to me here is the fact that maybe this will be a consideration in Surfer, as Surfer usually can fill up at least 2 lanes, so that gives this +4. It ends up being a 3/6. You buff it with Surfer, it's a 3/8. That's pretty decent, and it's basically kind of close to Maximus with no downside. So I do think this card is much, much better than Dazzler originally was, but I don't necessarily expect it to be seeing a whole lot of play outside of some experimentation with Silver Surfer, or possibly an ongoing deck, though I'm a little less sold on that one. But maybe someone gets a ongoing Thanos Zoo going, or it's able to swarm the board a bit and fully make use of the effect Dazzler is going for. But I don't think this card is going to be super powerful or anything, but it looks relatively playable, which is a pretty big step up from where it was before. And then the last card we have here is Maria Hill. Maria Hill initially was just giving you a random 1-drop card to your hand, and she has been adjusted, so now she adds a random 1 or 2 cost to your hand. It's interesting. They said the goal here is to make her a little bit more like Coulson, which I guess I can see it. It fits the theming a bit there, and I think generally this makes the card better, because I think there are a lot of decent 2-drops. So the fact that you're not only reliant on 1-drops anymore, I think is more of a benefit, but I don't really see this impacting the card in a very significant way. I think that's kind of the biggest critique I have with the changes they've made, aside from the Galactus stuff, is they've been making buffs, but a lot of the times I feel like the buffs they're making, with a few exceptions, like Enchantress, a lot of the buffs they've been making are turning bad cards into slightly less bad cards, but not in a way where they become very playable. So I think if you're going to be putting in the resources to be buffing these cards, I think you want to go a little bit further and make them a bit more appealing. And since they have the technology with the OTA stuff, I think they can be a little bit more free form with it and try and push that barrier a little, because worst case, and again, Enchantress is a great example of this, if they turn the dial up too high, like they did with the 4/6 Enchantress, you can just nudge it back down. Now she's a 4/5, everyone seems to be pretty happy about it. She's better than she was before, not quite as crazy as she was as a 4/6. I would like to see them kind of go a bit more in that direction, because, at least for me, the buffs here are neat, the buffs we got in the last OTA are neat, but they don't really push me to do a whole lot of new exploring with the card, because they're really just taking cards that were almost entirely unplayable or just generally very bad and making them a little bit less bad. And being a little bit less bad isn't usually enough to kind of clear the bar to compete. But so those are the card updates. Again, they're keeping an eye on High Evo, seeing how stuff goes with him. We'll see in the future, but who knows? I would love to hear what you think about these changes, though. I'm sure the Galactus change is the one everyone's going to be focusing on, but as someone who's been fairly neutral on the topic for pretty much the whole time, I'm very, very curious to see how people react to this news. And big super Fs in the chat for all my Galactus enjoyers, because I don't think he's going to be very playable anymore. And you know, they say they're committed to, he's too bad, we'll adjust the numbers a little bit more. I don't think this is a problem you fix with numbers, but only time will tell. We don't know anything for sure. Those are just my initial thoughts. I'd like to hear yours in the comments below. That's going to wrap it up for this video. I'm going to be doing a bunch of Conquest stuff today, and I have an overview going up on the Snap Zone channel, and I'll be streaming it as it goes live. By the time this video is out, I think it will be live, so check out the stream if you want to see some Conquest. But that's going to wrap it up for this video. If you enjoyed it, remember to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.